The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with laughter. Not the warm kind that brought species together, but the cruel type that tore them apart. At the center of this storm stood Captain Thomas Reed, his back straight and his face calm despite the mockery raining down from all sides. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering, with walls that shifted like liquid metal and a ceiling that showed the real-time dance of 1,000 stars. But today, its beauty was lost under the weight of scorn from the council members. Seventh dimensional travel. The Prisma representative's crystalline body flickered with blue lights of amusement. Next, these humans will claim they can bottle stardust and sell it as wine. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Thomas kept his hands folded behind his back, just as they had taught him at the academy. Earth needed this recognition. They needed the council to understand that humanity had made a real breakthrough. But looking at the faces and other sensing organs of the assembled representatives, he knew this would be harder than expected. The Lumini delegate floated forward, its energy form pulsing with what humans had learned to recognize as smugness. "We have studied dimensional physics for 10,000 years," it said, its voice translated into perfect universal standard. "Our youngest scientists understand more about reality than your entire species has learned since you first looked up at the stars." "With respect," Thomas said, his voice steady, sometimes a fresh perspective. "Fresh," interrupted Council Leader Max, an ancient being who looked almost human except for his perfectly cubic head. "Your species still fights over patches of dirt on your home world. You barely managed basic spaceflight a century ago. The only reason you're even here is because we felt pity and gave you FTL technology." Thomas pulled out a small device from his pocket. The guards tensed, but he slowly placed it on the floating platform in front of him. "If you would just look at our data. We don't need to look at crude drawings made by children playing with forces they don't understand." The Prisma representative cut in. "The seventh dimension can't be accessed by technology alone. This is known. This is proven. This is law." "But that's exactly our point," Thomas tried again. "We're not just using technology. We've discovered that consciousness itself." The laughter grew louder. A representative from the gas-based cloudkin species expanded to twice its size, its voice booming. "They think they can think their way into higher dimensions. Truly, humans are the greatest comedians in the galaxy." Thomas felt his jaw tighten. He thought of Marion back on Earth, of all the breakthroughs they'd made, of the moment they first realized what consciousness could do to the fabric of reality itself. They weren't wrong. They couldn't be wrong. They had proof. "The Council hereby denies Earth's petition for recognition as a Level 4 civilization," Max announced, his cubic head rotating precisely 90 degrees to face Thomas. "Furthermore, we suggest you cease these dangerous experiments immediately. Playing with dimensional forces beyond your understanding could tear apart your entire solar system." "We know exactly what we're doing," Thomas said, his voice carrying a sharp edge now. "And we can prove it." "Oh." The Lumini delegate drifted closer. "Like you tried to prove it at Havens Point Station. We all remember how that demonstration ended. Or should I say, exploded." Thomas felt heat rise in his chest. The Havens Point incident had been sabotage, he was sure of it. But they had no proof, and bringing up accusations now would only make humanity look worse. "This meeting is concluded," Max declared. "Return to your planet, Captain Reed. Focus on solving your world's real problems. Leave dimensional physics to species that can count past 3 without using their fingers." As Thomas collected his device and turned to leave, the laughter followed him like a wave. But he smiled slightly, thinking of the message he would send back to Earth. Proceed with Phase 2. Let them laugh. Let them mock. Let them dismiss humanity as primitive apes playing with forces beyond their understanding. Soon enough, they would learn what humanity had discovered about the true nature of consciousness, dimensions, and reality itself. And then, Thomas thought as the chamber doors closed behind him, We'll see who's laughing. The wind howled across the Antarctic landscape, but deep beneath the ice and steel, Dr. Marion Wells couldn't hear it. She stood in the heart of humanity's most advanced facility, her eyes fixed on the pulsing core of the Genesis engine. The machine didn't look impressive, just a sphere of twisted metal and glowing crystals, but it held the key to humanity's greatest discovery. Status report. Director Alan Stone's voice came from behind her. He always moved quietly, despite his large frame. Marion smiled without turning around. The consciousness resonance is stable at 94%. Better than yesterday. She pointed to one of the floating screens surrounding the engine. Look at these patterns. They're exactly what we predicted. Alan stepped closer, his breath fogging slightly in the cold air of the chamber. Even with the best heating systems on Earth, keeping the engine cool meant everyone had to wear heated suits. The council meeting didn't go well, he said quietly. Thomas already sent the message. Marion finally turned to face him. They laughed at us, didn't they? Like we were children showing them crayon drawings. Alan's face hardened. They still think we're just lucky apes who got handed space travel. Marion walked over to another console, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. The Genesis engine's hum changed pitch slightly, and new patterns appeared in its swirling surface. They don't understand what we found. They're so focused on technology that they missed the obvious. Consciousness itself is the key, Alan nodded. We've known it since the first quantum experiments. The observer affects reality. And we're all observers. Marion pressed another sequence of commands. Above them, a hologram showed the structure of reality itself, not just the 3 dimensions everyone could see, or the 4th dimension of time, but all 11 dimensions theorized by the string theorists of old. The aliens built bigger machines, more powerful computers, more complex algorithms. But they never thought to look inside themselves. The Genesis engine pulsed again, and this time a small sphere of reality about 2 feet across simply shifted. It didn't disappear or move. It just seemed to exist in a way that human eyes couldn't quite understand. Perfect containment, Marion said proudly. The 7th dimensional barrier is holding steady. Want to see something really interesting? She didn't wait for an answer before typing another command. A small metal ball appeared inside the shifted space, or rather, it had always been there, but now it existed in a way human senses could perceive. It floated, spinning slowly, completely ignoring gravity. Is that? Alan started to ask. The same ball we used in yesterday's test. Yes. Marion's eyes sparkled. It's been here the whole time, just shifted slightly sideways in dimensional space. More importantly, look at these readings. She pointed to another screen. The energy cost is almost 0 now. We finally cracked the efficiency problem. Alan whistled softly. No wonder the Prisma are worried. Their whole economy is based on the massive energy costs of dimensional engineering. If this gets out. When this gets out, Marion corrected him. We're not hiding this. Humanity deserves to take its place among the stars. Real human achievement, not just handed-down alien tech. A soft alarm chimed from one of the consoles. Marion quickly checked the readings and smiled. The quantum entanglement is holding at 100%. We can replicate this on a larger scale now. Say, ship-sized. Ellen looked at her sharply. The consciousness prime. But after Haven's Point. Haven's Point was sabotage, and you know it. Marion's voice was firm. We're ready for the next step. The ship is built. The engine is stable. And now, she gestured at the floating ball, still spinning in its impossible space. We have proof that we can maintain 7th dimensional stability indefinitely. They'll try to stop us again, Alan warned. Marion's smile turned determined. Let them try. They think they know everything about dimensional physics. They haven't seen anything yet. Humanity is about to change everything they think they know about reality itself. The Genesis engine hummed quietly in the background, its surface swirling with patterns that seemed to repeat forever, like a visual echo of the universe's deepest secrets. And in its light, humanity's future grew brighter with each passing moment. Havens Point Space Station hung in the darkness like a giant silver snowflake. Commander James Walker stood at the helm of the demonstration vessel Little Dream, watching the station grow larger in the viewscreen. This was humanity's big chance, a neutral demonstration of their seventh dimension technology, away from the politics of the Galactic Council. Status check. James called out to his small crew of 5. Engine running at optimal levels, reported his engineer, Mark. The Genesis core is stable and ready for demonstration. Lisa, the science officer, looked up from her console. All monitoring equipment is recording. If anything happens, we'll know exactly why. James nodded, trying to ignore the knot in his stomach. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The station had agreed to host this demonstration. Everything was official. So why did the back of his neck tingle with warning? Havens Point Control to Earth Vessel Little Dream. A voice crackled through the speakers. You are cleared for approach to Dock 7. Please follow the guide lights. Acknowledged, Havens Point, James responded. Following your lead. A line of blue lights appeared in space, marking their path to the dock. The Little Dream moved forward slowly, its conventional engines purring quietly. They weren't going to activate the Genesis core until the demonstration began. Inside the ship's engine room, the Genesis core sat quietly, its surface rippling like water in moonlight. Nobody noticed the tiny device attached to its control panel, blinking once every few minutes. As they approached the dock, James saw the observation deck where representatives from various neutral species would watch their demonstration. Earth had chosen these observers carefully, smaller powers who hadn't taken sides in galactic politics, who might be willing to verify humanity's achievement without bias. Docking clamps engage, Mark announced. We're secure. James straightened his uniform. All right, people, this is it. In 30 minutes, we show the galaxy that humanity isn't just copying alien technology anymore. We're blazing our own trail. The crew began their final checks. Lisa monitored the Genesis core's readings, noting with satisfaction that everything looked perfect. Mark ran through the docking procedures, making sure their ship was properly secured. Commander, Lisa called suddenly, her voice sharp with concern. I'm getting some odd readings from the core. James turned to her console. What kind of readings? The consciousness resonance is fluctuating. Wait, that's not possible. Her fingers flew across the controls. The core is activating on its own. Mark's voice came through the intercom, panic evident. Commander, the safety protocols are failing. Something's overriding the containment field. James hit the emergency broadcast button. Havens Point Control, we have an emergency situation. Request immediate evacuation of the observation deck and surrounding areas. But it was too late. The Genesis core's quiet hum had become a high-pitched whine. Through the view screen, James watched in horror as reality itself seemed to bend around their ship. The metal of the dock began to twist, folding in ways that human eyes couldn't properly see. Shut it down, James ordered. Emergency shutdown now. Controls aren't responding, Mark shouted back. It's like something's forcing the core to stay active. In the observation deck, the gathered diplomats began to run. They had seen enough failed experiments to know when things were going wrong. But as they watched, a sphere of distorted space began to grow from the Little Dream's engine section. All hands, abandon ship, James commanded. Get to the escape pods. The crew scrambled to obey, but the growing dimensional distortion was making movement difficult. Space itself seemed to be folding around them, creating paths that led everywhere and nowhere at once. In the last moments before the explosion, Lisa's console showed one final reading that made her eyes go wide. Commander, this isn't a malfunction. We're being. The blast of seventh-dimensional energy cut off her words, ripping through Havens Point Station like tissue paper. When it was over, half the station had simply ceased to exist, folded away into dimensions human senses couldn't perceive. And across the galaxy, humanity's enemies smiled, knowing their sabotage had worked perfectly. Now no one would trust humans with dimensional technology again. Marion Wells hadn't slept in 3 days. The dim light of her lab screens cast a blue glow on her tired face as she reviewed the Havens Point disaster data for the 100th time. Empty coffee cups littered her desk, silent witnesses to her relentless search for answers. "You need to rest," Alan Stone said from the doorway of her lab. "You can't solve this if you're exhausted." "Look at this," Marion said, ignoring his concern. She pointed to a series of readings on her screen. "I've been so focused on finding proof of sabotage that I almost missed something incredible." Alan walked over, squinting at the complex patterns of data. "What am I looking at?" The moment everything went wrong, Marion's fingers danced across the controls, zooming in on a specific set of numbers. "See these consciousness resonance patterns? They're not random failure readings like we thought. They're responding to something." "Responding to what?" Alan leaned closer. "To fear." Marion sat back in her chair, her eyes bright despite her exhaustion. When the crew realized something was wrong, their fear changed the resonance patterns. But look what happened next. She moved the data forward a few seconds. The patterns on the screen shifted, forming new configurations that seemed to twist in impossible ways. The seventh dimensional field didn't just collapse, Marion explained, her voice growing excited. It adapted. It responded to the crew's emotional state. "We've been thinking about consciousness all wrong. It's not just about observation. It's about emotional connection to reality itself." Alan frowned. "But that would mean—" "Yes." Marion stood up and walked to the Genesis engine, which hummed quietly in the center of the lab. "The aliens think we're primitive because we feel too much, because we let emotions cloud our judgment. But those very emotions are the key to something they've never understood." She placed her hand on the engine's surface. Under her touch, the swirling patterns changed slightly, responding to her presence. "We don't just observe reality. We feel it. And reality feels us back." "That's impossible," Alan whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. Marion shook her head. "Think about it. Every major breakthrough in human history came not just from logical observation, but from intuition, from feeling the right answer before we could prove it. We're not just conscious observers. We're conscious participants in reality itself." She walked to another console and brought up the design specs for their next-generation ship, the Consciousness Prime. "We need to redesign the control systems. Instead of trying to suppress emotional responses like the aliens do, we need to embrace them, channel them." "The Council already thinks we're unstable," Alan warned. "If we tell them we're going to power our ships with feelings, we're not going to tell them anything." Marion's tired face broke into a smile. "We're going to show them. The sabotage at Havens Point wasn't just an attack. It was a gift. It showed us what we've been missing." She pulled up another screen, showing the new equations she'd developed. "Look at these calculations. When we remove the emotional dampeners from the system, the power output increases exponentially. But it's not just raw power. It's controlled, directed by the very emotions the aliens think make us weak." Alan studied the numbers, his eyes widening. "These power levels, they're beyond anything we thought possible." "Because we were trying to think like them," Marion said. "Clinical, detached. But that's not who we are. Humans feel deeply, care deeply, and now we know. That's our strength, not our weakness." She turned back to the Genesis engine, watching its patterns shift and swirl. "The aliens think consciousness is about cold observation, but it's about connection, about feeling the truth of reality in your bones. They've spent 10,000 years studying the universe from the outside. We're the first species to realize you have to feel it from the inside." "When can we test this?" Alan asked, already knowing the answer. Marion's smile grew determined. We already are. The Genesis engine is responding to every word we say, every emotion we feel. We're not just observing seventh-dimensional space anymore. We're dancing with it. Outside the lab, the Antarctic wind howled across the ice. But inside, humanity's greatest discovery pulsed with new life, singing in harmony with the very emotions its creators had once tried to suppress. Fleet Admiral Robert Pierce stood in Earth's main defense control room, watching the massive wall screen with growing concern. Hundreds of alien ships were appearing at the edge of the solar system, their numbers increasing by the hour. Another Prisma battle fleet just jumped in, reported his tactical officer, Mike. That makes 300 ships total. The Lumini are sending ships too. We've counted at least 200 of theirs. Robert's face remained calm, but his hands tightened behind his back. And their official reason for this exercise near our system. They claim they're conducting routine training maneuvers, Mike said with a snort. But their ships are in attack formation. The room fell silent as a new alert flashed across the screen. A massive Prisma dreadnought had just appeared, its crystalline structure gleaming even in the distant sunlight. Send word to all Earth defense platforms, Robert ordered. Battle stations, but no aggressive moves. We don't fire first. He turned to his communications officer. Get me Marion Wells. The main screen split, showing Marion's face. She looked tired but excited. Admiral, we're ready down here. The modifications to Consciousness Prime are complete. It better work, Doctor, Robert said grimly, because we're about to have a lot of company. He sent her the latest scan data. How long until the ship is ready for launch? We can launch in 6 hours, Marion replied. But Admiral, there's something you need to know. The ship, it's different now, after what we learned from Haven's Point. Different how? We're not just using consciousness to observe higher dimensions anymore. The whole ship is designed to respond to human emotions. The stronger the crew feels, the more powerful the ship becomes. Robert raised an eyebrow. You're telling me you built a warship powered by feelings? Not just feelings, Marion corrected. By the fundamental connection between human consciousness and reality itself. The aliens think emotions make us weak. We're about to show them just how wrong they are. A new alarm blared through the control room. Mike's voice was tense. Admiral, the Prisma fleet is moving. They're heading straight for Earth. Their weapons are charging. Robert's jaw set firm. How many Earth ships can we get in position? 20 capital ships, maybe 40 smaller vessels, Mike reported. Against 500 alien ships. It won't be enough, Marion said quickly. But it doesn't have to be. We just need to hold them off for 6 hours. Give us that time, Admiral. Trust me. Robert looked at the tactical display, his mind racing through options. The alien fleet was overwhelming, but he'd spent his whole career preparing for this moment. Send word to all Earth ships, he commanded. Defensive positions only. Protected zones around all population centers. And get me Captain Thomas Reed. Thomas's face appeared on another section of the screen. Already suited up and ready. Admiral. Good. You'll be piloting Consciousness Prime when it launches. Think you can handle a ship powered by emotions? Thomas smiled slightly. After all the mockery we've endured, all the times they've laughed at us and called us primitive. His eyes hardened. I've got more than enough emotion for what's coming. 6 hours, Marion repeated. Just give us 6 hours. Robert nodded, then turned to his crew. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Defensive positions only. Let them make the first move. He looked back at the screen showing the approaching alien armada. They think we're children playing with forces we don't understand. Time to show them what humanity can really do. As alert sirens blared across Earth, Marion rushed to complete the final adjustments to Consciousness Prime. In space, Earth's small fleet moved to protect their homeworld. And approaching through the darkness, 500 alien ships came to end humanity's dimensional experiments once and for all. The storm was about to break. And at its heart, a new kind of ship waited to reveal the true power of human consciousness to the galaxy. The first shots came exactly as Earth's defenders had predicted. The Prisma fleet opened fire with their crystalline energy weapons, filling space with deadly light. Earth's shields flared as they absorbed the impact, holding, for now. Shields at 80% and dropping, Mike reported from the defense control room. The Lumini ships are moving to flank us. Admiral Robert Pierce watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. Earth's small fleet was fighting well, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Already 3 defense platforms had fallen, their crews barely managing to escape in time. How much longer? He demanded. 30 minutes until Consciousness Prime launches, came Marion's voice over the comm. We're running final checks now. In the launch bay deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Thomas Reed sat in the pilot's chair of humanity's greatest achievement. Consciousness Prime looked deceptively simple from the outside, a sleek silver shape about the size of a small destroyer. But inside, it was unlike anything ever built. Remember, Marion's voice came through his helmet speakers. Don't fight the emotional response. Feel it. Let it flow through you into the ship. The stronger you feel, the more powerful the connection becomes. Thomas closed his eyes, feeling the ship's systems connecting to his mind. Around him, the rest of the small crew did the same. They weren't just pilots and engineers anymore. They were about to become one with the ship itself. Above them, the battle grew desperate. Another Earth ship exploded, its crew escaping in pods that the alien fleet casually ignored. They weren't here to kill humans, just to put the primitive species back in its place. Launch in 5 minutes, Marion announced. She turned to Alan Stone beside her. The emotional resonance is already stronger than anything we've seen in testing. They're ready. Alan nodded, watching the readings climb. The aliens won't know what hit them. In orbit, the Prisma flagship sent another demand for surrender. Your experiment with dimensional travel ends now, the alien commander declared. Submit to containment, or we will be forced to take more dramatic action. Robert's response was short. Wait. The alien commander started to reply, but suddenly every sensor in the combined fleet lit up with warnings. Something was happening in the Antarctic. Consciousness Prime rose from its hidden base, its silver hull gleaming in the sunlight. But it didn't look solid anymore. Reality seemed to bend around it, creating patterns that hurt to look at. What is that? The Prisma commander demanded. What are you doing? Inside the ship, Thomas opened his eyes. They glowed with a strange inner light. Now, he said quietly, let me show you what human emotions can really do. The ship didn't move through space. Space moved around it. One moment it was over Antarctica. The next it was in the middle of the alien fleet. But it wasn't just traveling through space. It was reshaping reality itself. Impossible. The Lumini ships broadcast. Their dimensional field is stronger than anything we've ever recorded. Thomas felt the fear and anger of Earth's defenders, the determination of his crew, the hope of his species. He let it all flow through him into the ship, and the ship responded. A sphere of altered space expanded from Consciousness Prime, enveloping nearby alien vessels. But instead of destroying them like at Haven's Point, it simply shifted them. 300 ships vanished, reappearing instantly on the other side of the solar system. That's not possible, the Prisma commander whispered. You can't manipulate seventh-dimensional space with that level of precision. The energy requirements alone. Energy. Thomas's voice carried across all frequencies. We don't need massive energy arrays. We don't need crystal matrices or quantum computers. All we need is what you've always mocked us for. Our emotions, our consciousness, our human connection to reality itself. To demonstrate, Consciousness Prime danced through space again. This time, it didn't just move. It existed in multiple places simultaneously, each version as real as the others. The alien fleet's weapons passed harmlessly through the spaces where the ship had been, missing the spaces where it actually was. And in Earth's defense control room, Robert Pierce smiled. Now he broadcast to the alien fleet, "Shall we discuss the terms of your withdrawal? Or would you like another demonstration of what human consciousness can really do?" The Galactic Council chamber was silent. No laughter echoed off its walls now. The representatives of the most advanced species in known space sat in stunned silence as they watched the recording from the Earth incident for the third time. They watched again as Consciousness Prime danced through reality itself, manipulating seventh-dimensional space with an ease that should have been impossible. They saw hundreds of ships moved across vast distances without energy weapons, without massive power arrays, without any of the technology they had relied on for thousands of years. Thomas Reed stood before them again, but this time no one mocked his presence. Beside him, Marion Wells prepared her presentation, her movements calm and confident. "As you can see," Thomas said, his voice carrying easily through the silent chamber, "humanity's approach to dimensional travel is fundamentally different from anything previously attempted." The Prisma representative's crystalline form flickered with confused colors. But how? "Our measurements showed energy expenditure far below what should be necessary for such manipulation." "Because you're still thinking about pure technology," Marion stepped forward. "You're still trying to brute force your way through dimensional barriers." She gestured, and a hologram appeared, showing the intricate patterns of human consciousness interacting with reality itself. "We don't force reality to bend," she explained. "We ask it to dance with us." "Impossible," the Lumini delegate pulsed. "Reality doesn't dance, doesn't it?" Marion smiled. "Every quantum observation shows that reality responds to consciousness. You've known this for millennia. But you treated it as an inconvenience, something to be controlled and minimized. We embraced it." She brought up another display, showing the emotional resonance patterns from Consciousness Prime during the confrontation. "Human consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it connects with it. Our emotions, the very things you mocked us for, are actually our greatest strength." Council Leader Max's cubic head rotated slowly as he processed this. "You're saying that feelings, emotions, are the key to advanced dimensional manipulation. They're the key to understanding reality itself," Thomas corrected. "Your civilizations advanced so far by suppressing emotions, by trying to be pure logical observers. But in doing so, you cut yourselves off from the deepest connection with the universe." Marion nodded. "That's why your ships require such massive energy expenditure. You're forcing reality to change instead of working with it, like trying to break down a door instead of finding the key." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Thousands of years of scientific understanding were being challenged, not by superior technology, but by a completely different way of thinking. "We're not here to threaten or dominate," Thomas continued once the noise died down. "We're here to share, to teach, and to learn. Humanity may be young, but we've discovered something that all your advanced civilizations missed: the power of emotional connection to the fabric of reality itself. And you would share this knowledge?" Max asked carefully. "Even after our previous treatment of your species?" Thomas smiled. "That's another thing about humans. We may feel anger and hurt deeply, but we also feel forgiveness and hope just as strongly. Yes, we'll share what we've learned. In return, we ask only for recognition and respect, not as primitive beings who got lucky, but as equals who see the universe in a different way." The council chamber was quiet again, but this time it was a thoughtful silence. Finally, Max spoke. "The council acknowledges humanity's achievement. Your species is hereby recognized as a level 4 civilization, with all rights and responsibilities that entails." He paused, then added something unprecedented in council history. "Furthermore, we request that humanity teach us this new understanding. Perhaps it is we who have been primitive, trapped in our own limited view of reality." As the chamber filled with murmurs of agreement, Marion and Thomas shared a quiet smile. The laughter had stopped, replaced by something far better: respect, curiosity, and the dawning understanding that sometimes The youngest species could teach the oldest the most important lessons of all. In Earth orbit, Consciousness Prime continued its patrol, its hull shimming with patterns of reality that alien sensors still couldn't quite understand. But they were learning. The universe, it seemed, had many dances left to teach, and humanity was ready to lead the way.